Hey guys, how are you doing? I'm back with a new video, and today it's going to be about the track To My Loved Ones, and I'm going to show you how I use different sample techniques and put together a whole song by using a lot of samples from different sources. You are going to be able to listen to this track on Podvoro Records. It's going to come out in some weeks, so stay tuned and make sure to subscribe so that you get a notification when it's out. So the first thing I did is I sampled some really nice old strings from some Italian track from the 1960s, I guess. I'm going to just copy paste it to here so that I can show you the whole thing. You can see I automated the gain here. I'm going to delete it. So the whole thing is pretty nice too, but I really just wanted to have this 4-bar loop here, which I warped a little bit. But the thing with strings is I wouldn't recommend you to warp them too much, because it's going to sound weird and you just pull the individual waves too far away. So just do it a tiny bit and try to nod your head to the beat and set the markers wherever you hear the beat, and pull it to the grid of your track a tiny bit, but don't overdo it. It's going to be alright, not like some drum loops, because with drum loops you really want to be a little bit more strict and pull the transients of the loop to the grid of your track too. So this is everything I did with the strings. I have some basic high pass filter here and an auto filter which I use to make the track a little bit more interesting and not just giving away the whole sample at the beginning already. So as you can see, I have it at like 130 Hertz and it's going upwards until the 3rd minute. So moving on to the next one, it's going to be a head sample here. I'm going to loop a tiny part. So really subtle, really short. I'm going to show you the original sample. I'm going to turn off the high pass here. And the whole sample is, I guess, from some jazz track. I don't remember where I got it, to be honest. So I didn't want to have the bass here, that's why I applied the high pass filter on it. And one nice thing is to make it a little bit more percussive is to change the warp mode from beats to, from complex to beats. And then you can change between the preserve modes. I can really recommend you to play around with them a little bit, and also with the length of the preserve mode. Because what it does is, if you say, let's say it's going to be at 1/8, it's going to dip the volume after every 1/8 note, and you can set the length of this dip or the fade out by tweaking this knob here. So this way it would be really short and it would reduce the volume really fast after 1/8. So I have it around 30 here to let a little bit of the stuff after 1/8 as well, but not too much. The shaker sample is actually from the same sample, but it's already consolidated, so you don't see anything except for this tiny snippet of the audio. And once again, some high pass filter on it and a flanger, which I don't use here because I just have it for some effects here. Moving on to the conga drums. I just cut out some of the mud here, and it's a nice audio file with a lot of samples or drum loops, which you can kind of sweep through to find your favorite one. And it's really nice to, if you have an already existing track, to just go through the individual samples or loops and just find the one which fits to your track. So you can have a listen to some other parts here. But I only wanted this part, so I applied some warping here, but not too much, as you can see, to make it fit the groove a little bit better. So without... Oops. So nothing groundbreaking here going on. The clap is really basic as well, so it's just some layered clap. You can actually have a listen to the individual parts by turning them on and off by selecting everything or just pressing to the MIDI note and then pressing 0, so you can turn them off and on. So the one at the bottom just gives a little bit of thump and makes it a little bit more aggressive. The bassline is an interesting one in my opinion, because I actually took an old funk track here, which I sliced up into individual pieces. You can already hear that it's pretty deep, and it's because I already processed the audio file before cutting it up. And you can cut it up by selecting any audio file, just take one part and then click on Slice to New MIDI Track. And if I take the Create One Slice per Warp Marker mode, then it's going to create a slice whenever it detects a warp marker. So in this case it would make a slice which is that long, then once that is that long, and this one as well. And it's a nice way to just play around with the samples in a more interesting way. So combined with the kick, and yeah, the kick is not doing anything amazing either. It's just has a little bit of a boost at around 700 Hertz to make it a little bit more thumpy. You can have a listen to the individual boosts or cuts by turning on the headphone here and pressing on it. And I have an auto filter which I used at the drop, but I'm going to show it to you in a minute. So let's just move on. The hi-hat is pretty basic too. You have some velocity changes here to make it a little bit more human, which I can really recommend you whenever you do something shaker-like this one. And I also have a groove applied, which is the MPC16 Funker, and it's just there to make it a little bit more human by offsetting the individual MIDI notes. You can actually see how much of an offset it's going to get by pressing on this arrow here. And you can see it moves a little bit away because it applies the groove, and you can also see that it disappeared from here. But I like to leave it this way so that I have a bigger freedom. So basic 909 head, nothing new came in here except for that. And here I have the break where I actually took another part of the sample to make it a little bit more interesting and not that loopy. So I have some vocals here going on, which I love to use. It's from an old interview with some lifelong criminal, and I really like the whole sound aesthetics of the recording. So I'm going to show it to you in solo.
I was mad at everybody.
I think it just fits the mood to the whole track, so I thought, why not taking it? And here I have a new bass line, which is a little bit unusual to take a new one, but I thought about it because this one, which I showed you before, is nice too, but it's lacking of energy or power in my opinion. So I thought after a break it would be nice to have something more thumpy, straight and aggressive. And this one is a sample too. I'm going to show it to you. So it's pitched down by 12 semitones, which means 1 octave. So by that you make it deeper, but it's still going to stay in the same scale. So I'm going to turn it back to 0. Turn off the cutoff. So I didn't want anything from the high frequency content. That's why I applied this filter here. And I also have a compressor going on here, which is actually used as sidechain compression, because I didn't want to have the bass frequencies of the bass line colliding with the bass frequencies of the kick. So you can do it by choosing kick from for your audio from, and then it's going to dip the volume of the audio of the bass line whenever the kick plays and triggers it. So that's the whole idea behind it, and I use it most of the times. It's a really handy tool. So one thing I did here is to bring the sample, the string sample, to the background, because in my opinion you can make your arrangements a little bit more alive by taking out stuff which the listener takes for granted after some minutes. So in this case it would be the string sample, because it was going on all the time and everyone got used to it. And by that way the whole track gets a little bit one-dimensional, you know, because they just listen to this whole bunch of samples together. But by getting out the strings, you can kind of show the listener like other dimensions of the tracks, like the backbone, like the percussion stuff of it. So I can highly recommend you to take out stuff and bring some other ones back and just pan them a little bit, make some of them a little bit louder to make it more present, just to entertain the listener, because your idea may be really good or your loop as well, but after some minutes it's going to get really repetitive for everyone and they are going to move on to some other tracks or get bored. Yeah, so I fade it back slowly here and I have a larger chunk of the vocal sample.
I was mad at everybody, so I went uptown and I stole a car and started to leave.
What was wrong at home?
Well, that's none of your business.
You stole the car, you went uptown. How long before you were caught?
The same night.
By the count.
applied some different techniques for this second drop. And the first one is an auto filter, which I applied on the kick. And I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to solo the kick. And what I just did there is to give the listener back the sound of the kick, but without the low frequency information, so that she or he can prepare her or himself to party in some seconds, you know, because the kick is back. So it means it's going to happen soon, that everything comes back, but it's still without the low frequency stuff. So it's a nice way to create tension. And also I have the bass line here reversed because I thought it sounds really nice. And the final part of the string sample is a little bit different too, as you can see, because here I have it all the time on complex, but at this part I have it on beats and pulled down the length of the preserved notes. So this way, if I just loop it for you, it just creates some nice tension, you know, it's something else and it's not what they hear all the time. And it's a nice way to prepare your listeners, like not even a second before the drop, that it's going to come back now, you know. And I think it's an amazing feeling when everyone in the room knows that it's going to get back to party now. And that's the whole idea of having a nice drop, in my opinion. So I did that, and the last thing I did is I actually have on my master chain something called FX Visage, which is from my old artist name, and I put some individual effects together, which I really like, with some macros mapped to them, to just play around a little bit, you know, and make the drops a little bit more interesting by having some additional automation of the individual effects here. So like the timeless is like a delay plugin. I could also apply stuff like the grain delay here and just pull it up before the break. Oops, only before the break. Yeah, well, it sounds a little bit crazy, but you get the idea. So that's the whole idea of the whole track, and yeah, that's it. I hope you liked it. If so, then please make sure to subscribe, and especially because it's going to come out in some weeks, this track, alongside with some other tracks which I wrote the last year, and it's going to get released on Podvoro Records, so stay tuned and let me know if you have any kind of questions or critique, whatever. I would be really happy to read that. You can write some comments or write me in private as well. And until then, I wish you a nice week. Bye.